Blox cards is a hard game for new players to understand, and that's why I'm making this video about the basics of Blox cards. This will explain literally everything that you need to know. There'll be timestamps in the description for every single mechanic I'll be talking about. Before we start this video, subscribe to Feed My Pet Air, and let's begin. Icons is the very basis of every single card in Blox cards. To actually get cards, you need a certain amount of icons. When you hover over a card, it'll say how many icons it takes to play that card. If you don't have enough icons, you can't play that card. Once you get the icons, you can play the card, and you can use its abilities and stats to help you win the game. Icons can also be used to play cards known as action/terrain cards, where actions do certain things like damaging a target card, killing all cards, or even healing cards. So they're also very useful. Another reason you use icons is terrain cards, which are really weird. Basically, they're like action cards, but they're permanent and they're not player specific. So let's say I have Spooky Cavern. Every turn, I will get 4 colorless studs, and my opponent will also get 4 colorless studs. So as you can see, icons are very useful for getting all the cards in Blox cards. But how do you actually get icons? Well, at the beginning of your turn, you get 2 colorless icons, but that doesn't explain how you get yellow, red, green, and blue icons. Well, the way you actually get those icons is very simple. When you discard a card, whatever color that card was, you get 1 icon of that color. So if I have a blue card and I discard it, I get 1 blue icon. It also goes with my baseplate, which we'll talk about later. Same thing goes for red, green, and yellow. However, colorless cards, when they're discarded, only give you 1 white icon, and they don't go into your baseplate, which we'll talk about later. Another thing to note is when a card is on your board, it will give you 1 icon of that color. So, if I have 3 blue cards on my board, I will get 3 blue icons. And this is a good segue into the next part of this video. Baseplate is one of the most important mechanics in all of Blox cards, and it's also the mechanic that most new players do not understand and also do not fully utilize. Baseplate is honestly really simple. The first card you discard in a turn goes into your baseplate. What it does is that after your icons get reset, you get 1 icon from that card in your baseplate. So if I have 5 red cards in my baseplate, I'll get 5 red studs. You can't put white cards into your baseplate because white icons don't get reset, and also you get 2 every turn anyways. Now, you might be wondering at this point, how do I actually win Blox cards? Well, all you have to do is make your opponent's health go from 4,000 to 0. The way you do that is when there's no cards on your opponent's board, you simply click one of your cards and then click your opponent if there's no blocks on your cards, because otherwise you can't attack with your cards. Once your opponent's health reaches 0, you win the game and get your Blox bucks. So life is really right? Well, no, it's actually one of the least valuable things in this entire game. Let me explain. Basically, 4,000 life is a lot in this game. You can easily tank a lot of hits from cards, and decks that focus on losing life are viable because you have so much life at your disposal. Losing 1,000 or 2,000 life is just nobody cares. Once you start getting into like the below 1,000 life moments, you should probably focus on defending your life a lot. And so things like 74 Riley become big threats to you when you have below 1,000 life. However, above that, cards that make you lose life just don't even break a sweat when you see one. I mean, losing life is just not that bad, and I see new players valuing their life way too much. It's okay if you lose some life. And I've even seen games where people have gotten to 50 life and then they just completely sweep the floor with their opponent. I've done it myself. So cards that make you lose life are way lower threats than you think they are. Next, we're going to move on to more deck building things because we've kind of covered some of the basic mistakes noobs make when actually playing the game. We now need to start about deck making. For beginners, the best thing to do is to open red packs. For beginners, the best deck is a red aggro. Basically, what red aggro is it's a bunch of red cards that are really cheap and can kill your opponent fast. This is the best for new players because you don't really have a lot of late game cards that can deal with late game threats because you don't have a lot of cards. Back onto the topic of actually playing the game is noobs don't actually understand how to do turns that well. Granted, many noobs are not that bad with this, but they can be much better, and if you learn this, it's super helpful. Basically, when doing your turns, I often see noobs making mistakes and not playing efficiently at all. Let's first start with something so annoying. Not even say people who are not noobs and are actually really good at the game do. It's something I like to call splitting up the damage. Let's say I have 4 cards on my board, and my opponent has 3, and it's his turn to attack me. What I often see noobs do is they attack one card, and then they attack a different card. Why? This makes me so mad every time someone does this because it's such a simple mistake to see. Now, why is this a huge mistake? Well, if you're splitting up the damage between cards, you're not actually killing cards. It's another thing to note when starting to attack cards, you should find the biggest threat to you in that moment. If you have like 500 health, that drains your health, that's probably a big threat. If there's a card with 1,000 damage, but that's probably a big threat. Find out what is the biggest threat and kill that first before you start with the weaker things. Anyways, that's the basics of Blox cards for all you noobs to actually start learning how to play the game. I hope this tutorial helps a lot, and subscribe to Feed My Pet Air, please.